also, in couple Saturdays ago, I guess it was, or 3 Saturdays ago in July, we had a top turning event on one of the Saturdays, and we were able to turn about 100 tops. We had about 8 to 10 people that came, and then we had others that brought in and donated some more tops later. So I think we have over 150 tops that were created due to that event. We plan on another one on Saturday, September 20th, if you're interested. And it's something that truly, if you haven't turned a top and want to learn how to turn a top, show up on that Saturday. We'll have plenty of blanks available, and we'll get you through that project. It's a fun, quick item to turn. Let's see, if you are there are a new batch of baseball bat cutoffs. So if you've been looking for smalls for projects, please take advantage of those. There's 2 buckets of them back in the shop. So if you want any of them, grab them. It's great to be able to use them and use them as a resource. Membership remained at 110 paid members this month. Maybe have gained a couple members since this note was made. But we're right at that, and probably we may gain a few towards the end of the year, but it'll probably be next year where we're going to be a big push to try to drive that membership number up. Let's see, this month's challenge drawing winner will win 2 craft supply gift certificates that come also with a sticker that says craft supply that you can put on your car and be proud of where you get your supplies. Dollar sweepstakes winners will get to choose from several great prize options that are back on the table. I think we still got the small wood turning shirt. We've got some bottle stoppers. The multimeter is still available by some miracle. We've got a sanding disc holder for various sanding styles, and a couple of pieces of ash wood blanks if anybody's interested in those. So just a easy way to help out the club and possibly gain something that you never realized you wanted. Let's see. If you'd like your work featured on the KCWT Instagram or Facebook social media pages, please email photos and a description to Phil Sykes at philsykes@gmail.com, or you can also tag or mention our account at KC_Woodturners, or invite us to be a collaborator on your post. If you use social media, you probably understand what that says, but basically it's what Phil told me to tell you all in case you have something that you'd like to get up and out on social media. He'd be glad to help you. Social media is a great way to offer exposure to the club, so it's great if you can share something. Let's see, Mike Thomas. Mike, hold your hand up. If you have a demonstration to share, or know of a demonstrator, or if you have a demonstration you would like to see. I think he's getting this year pretty filled up. I think we're pretty, but it's time to start lining up things for next year. So keep that in mind and let Mike know if you have any ideas there. Mike Erickson has produced, and I forgot to set them out, but I'll go back there and get some so you can see them during the refreshment break. But he's created some mallets made out of what kind of plastic? Ultra high molecular weight plastic. So they're smaller mallets, but they're nice hand-sized mallets that can be used for about any kind of pounding without destroying them. And we're going to put those out on a table and sell them for the club's sake at $30 a piece. So I'll get some of those out here and on the show and tell table later in the meeting. And thank you, Mike Erickson, for providing those. Also, we've been working on, or I should say Elizabeth Wright has been working on a trifold brochure for the club, and it has finally been produced, and we've got several copies back there. We don't want them just to be distributed out to everybody because we don't want to run out too fast. We're going to use them for years. But if you know someone that is truly interested in information regarding our club, feel free to grab one and pass it along to them. They're there for that purpose. We'll have them at our tent sales and at the Irish Fest and at the Spinach Fest as well. So we'll be handing them out to interested participants there. Open shop. I think everybody knows the times and the days, but it's Saturday mornings from 8:30 to 12 p.m. It usually travels a little past 12. And then Wednesday and Thursday evenings from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. But sometimes there's people there a little earlier than 6 p.m. Usually we don't go past 9 p.m. The exception is the third Wednesday of each month. That's the guild's monthly meeting night, so we don't turn on that night. As far as the open shop goes, please help keep it clean, wear your badge, and sign in on the sheet inside the door so that we can kind of just keep track of how many people are using of an evening and during Saturdays. There is a doorbell at the back door if the front door is locked, and you know it's an open turning day. Back door is locked, just ring the doorbell, and if we're inside, somebody will come out and unlock it for you. Please report any equipment problems to a board member and keep showing the equipment love. One of the things you can do is detension the bandsaw after you use it. And as I understand, it's not fully detentioned, it's partially detensioned. Is that right, David? You don't want to take it all the way to loose, but basically put it back at the setting that it's at and we'll be good. Also, finally, regarding open shop, there was an Anthony sighting at open shop this past month, which was kind of nice to see because we haven't seen him there for a few weeks. So keep your eyes out. You might see him again. Let's see. Help wanted. Boy, please consider helping with club activities. It's great opportunities to meet new people and to talk wood turning. We could use a couple members to help with setup, sales, breakdown of the club tent for the September and October First Fridays events. So if you're interested in helping out there, let Ed or I know. Setups around 3 p.m. in the afternoon on Friday, and sales go from 4 to 9, and then breakdowns at 9 p.m. Like I've said, the tent's great exposure for our club. You get to talk to a lot of people and introduce them to wood turning or talk about your projects there. Yes, and if you're
your fee for the tent space, but there's several people selling stuff.
So yes, and if you can't make and help out, but you have some items that you'd like to put out on the table, just talk to Ed and I, and we'll get them out there on the table. Club does take 20% of the sales, so price them accordingly. Let's see, there are still time slots available to help out at this year's Irish Fest. I did see names starting to populate the Sign Up Genius, so take a look at that Sign Up Genius. There was an email that Kevin sent out that has the link that gets you there, and see if there's an opportunity for you to help out for that 3-day event. We also are in need of a member to produce the club's monthly wood chips magazine, especially if you're a member that regularly attends our monthly meetings. Please see myself, Mike, or Kevin, and we'd like to talk to you. Kevin says he can produce a template that would be pretty easy to follow. We would want somebody that could take some photos of our challenge tables and our monthly meeting items. And then I'm looking at it, should take about 2 hours or so a month. And that's probably after you get through the initial few times of trying to understand what you're putting together there. So think about that. And if you could help out, let us know. Okay, that gets me through most of our announcements. I'm going to go on to upcoming activities. SWAT is just around the corner for those members that are interested. It's August 22nd through 24th in Waco, Texas. You're probably a little late in getting ready if you're not already signed up and ready to go for that, but good luck to those that are going down there. I hope you have a good time and it's a good symposium. The Irish Festival is the next big thing coming up. It's Memorial Day weekend, which falls at the last weekend of August because the first day of September is Monday, Memorial Day. Excuse me. And I wrote down Memorial Day. Labor Day weekend, I'm sorry. Please consider spending some time at our tent, selling, turning, or talking. Entry to the event is free for volunteers, and it's always a good time. If you have signed up and you are lined up to volunteer, see Kevin and he can get you a wristband. Is that right, Kevin? All right. We're also going to have a tent at this year's Spinach Festival in Lenexa. I wrote Irish Festival. I'm reading Irish Festival here. It's the Spinach Festival in Lenexa. It will be the following weekend, and this will be on the Saturday, September 6th, and that's following our First Friday's event on September 5th. So again, any help that we can get on September 5th will help us wake up and be ready for the September 6th tent setup. And then finally, we will be turning and selling tops at this year's Caw Valley Farm Tour in Lawrence. This is something that Mike Erickson has kind of coordinated for us. I don't know. I know that it's Sunday or Saturday and Sunday, October 4th and 5th. I don't have the times written down yet, but we'll get more information, 9 to 5. And our plan is to have a lathe there that will be turning tops and selling tops to the kids that are there. And Mike said that there's a potential to go through as many as 200 tops while we're there. So the tops we've been turning are going to go to good use. Let's see. That brings me to the safety minute. And unfortunately, Phil couldn't make it because I really wanted his reaction and I got it actually through email. But did you notice that I addressed the caution, and I've got Phil in the caution picture now, and I've converted the lathe to a wood lathe instead of a metal lathe, kind of. So anyway, I think that gets me through what I know I'm supposed to be talking to you about, and that leads me to our demonstration tonight. I think everybody knows Don Frank. Don's been very prominent in helping the club try and find different ways of bringing in resources. And he's also a very talented taxidermist, world-renowned taxidermist, ex-taxidermist. Okay. So don't bring him any taxidermy projects, but and he's going to show you some ideas tonight to kind of get your mind thinking and try to show you how his mind thinks in terms of thinking through a project that is not your normal project. We were going to do a coring demonstration, and Don said, I don't know if there's enough people out there that's going to be interested in watching me core a bowl. So he thinks he can make it more interesting than coring a bowl. After the demo, please let him know if it was more interesting than coring a bowl.
May not be. No guarantees.
I'll turn this over to Don, and thank you, Don.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Can you all hear okay? Okay, no echo or anything? All right, good deal. Well, my apologies on the coring thing for those of you that wanted to see bowl coring, but there's better ways of addressing that. We'll have another bowl production day back in the shop, and I think last time we did cord what, 40 or 50 or something in one setting. So we'll get the word out when the next one of those happens, and you can spend all day either helping or at least watching us core bowls. The title of what I'm doing, I'm calling it outside of the box. And the reason for it is severalfold. One, to maybe inspire a few of you to do something that's out of your comfort zone, something you've wanted to do or try and haven't, and a reason to do so. my background, of course, I was a taxidermist for 45 years or 43 years full time. All I did was fish. Go ahead and pull those first 6 up, Ron, and just, or Robin, just roll through them. But all I did was fish. So 5, 6, 7 days a week, I sat down, I had an airbrush in my hand. I was working with epoxies or resins or whatever, and doing every kind of species of fish there was and all of that. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is it did give me a good jump start into a lot of the things that people struggle with on wood turning, which is, you know, carving and textures and color and thinking through a process of composition and shape and form and all of those things. And so it did help me jumpstart when I got to the point in turning to where I wanted to do something different. I felt confident that I could go ahead and do it. And I don't know if he scrolled through all those, but go ahead and scroll through all of those quickly if you want to. All of us, well, I'll back up a little bit. I've been turning about 10 or 12 years. And I started it while I was still working full time. I desperately needed a diversion of something that didn't look or smell like a fish, and or that I had to paint like a fish. And so it was at the time it was the perfect diversion for me. And a friend of mine introduced me to it, and I don't know whether to thank him or slap him because it's been kind of overwhelming ever since. But the thing that I personally enjoy about it is the fact that you can take a rotten piece of firewood and stick on the lathe and actually turn something and do something out of it. And it is just real refreshing for me to be able to put something on, have no real idea of what the end shape's going to be. You may have an idea you want to do a vessel or a bowl of some sort, but sometimes the wood kind of dictates what you can and can't do. All of us on turning journey usually start out with round and brown. You know, we're doing bowls or hollow forms or functional things, bottle stop openers, you know, all the different things that are done out of wood, and you have all the varieties of you know, every kind of wood and every you know, really beautiful stuff that you can do. And so there's not a thing with round and brown, and that's all I did for really several years. And there's full-time carvers, Mike Mahoney and Glenn Lucas are kind of the poster childs of you know, what production turning is. You know, most do production turning that make their living out of turning are doing things that are repeatable because they know how much time they have in them. They can gear up to do a lot of them at the same time. And I'm sure it has to be extremely boring at times, but it's you know, what's necessary to you know, to make money in wood turning. The other side of that are the ones that are extremely artsy. You know, Betty. Yeah, Betty Sharpino comes to mind. You know, just she has turned wood turning into things that are partially wood turning, but she disassembles them and changes them with texture and shape and form, and you know, and creates some incredible art pieces. But it's still, the fundamentals are still wood turning. The buddy of mine that got me started on wood turning, all he does is turkey calls and duck calls. He hardly ever does a bowl, but he does hundreds of these and hundreds of turkey calls, or I mean, the duck calls. And for those of you that don't know what this is, there's a lot of us that are foolish enough to crawl out in the spring and wade through ticks and chiggers and bugs and sit behind a tree in full camouflage and do this and hope that a turkey will come by and you can shoot him. So these calls that he makes They're essentially round and brown, but there's some science that goes into it, some experimentation and on what works and what doesn't. Since I've started turning, the thing that I can put most turners into three basic categories. You have the round and brown, you have the engineers, and you have what I call the fly by the seat of your pants. I've talked about the round and brown. The engineers will rarely, if ever, a project that they don't plan out ahead of time, usually with multiple drawings, sometimes CAD drawings. And it's just, they may not be engineers, but they have an engineer mindset. And they think through exactly what they're doing. And that's what works for them, is to plan a project out completely ahead of time and make it work based on math or whatever else they put into it. Some of the people that I call engineers become segmented turners. Not all segmented turners are engineers, but the reverse is certainly true. And the segmented turners, you either have the guys that are just too cheap to buy a piece of wood and they want to make a base out of one board foot of wood, like cutting it up into little pieces and gluing it together, or they just love the math of the whole thing, making angles, making perfect cuts, making perfect glue ups and all of that. And I get all of that. I just don't do any of that because I know I would fail miserably at it. There's a couple of guys that come to mind. Malcolm Tibbetts and Jerry Bennett are two guys that have taken segmenting into the stratosphere. They both are two guys that are Malcolm Tibbetts does pieces with thousands and thousands of pieces, and some of them are multicolored pieces. Jerry Bennett does very sculptural pieces and creates some really, really interesting forms, but does so over an armature to where he glues everything up, and there's an incredible amount of sanding and things that take place in order to make it work. I'm a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy when it comes to turning. I enjoy taking a piece of wood and trying to figure out what shape I can make it. And you don't always know. You have a piece of burl or something that you're trying to read on how you're going to put it between centers, what's going to become the bottom. When you do start turning it away, the fissures that are going to open up on the inside, are they going to be in a way that are balanced on both sides, or in a way that you can envision? And you just can't always envision what they're going to look like. But I've become better at doing it over the years. But early on, I had my fair share of failures, and I did pieces that were hollow forms, and the voids just didn't open up where I hoped that they would open up. And so I was left with a piece that had an opening in it, and the opening was really difficult to sand. The openings were so big that it was difficult to get in at the job sanding it, and you had so much of an opening that you had to do something with it. You couldn't just leave it rough. And so I came up with the idea to do a painted birch bark interior, and it's just simply a disguise. It's just a way of kind of correcting something or making something work. And I coined it an inside out, where the bark, should actually be on the outside as on the inside. And I'm going to hand some of these to you, and we'll just pass them around. And so the first one of those that I did was I had turned this piece of wood. This was a vase that came on up, and it was fairly early on, and the bottom was thicker than what it should be, and it had a knot or something in the side, and it cracked down this side. And I started to chuck it in the fireplace, and I thought, well, I can maybe do something else with it. So I cut an opening in the side of it. Of course, that exposed the thing even more on the inside. Again, this would have been an easier one to sand than that one, but this is the first one that I actually did with the birch bark idea, and simply just a way of disguising the piece of wood, and but making something out of it. This is a fairly recent piece that I turned, and I'm going to have the same issue on it. I'm going to either have to do a really good job sanding on the inside, do that, or come up with something else that is a little different to something other than just painting it black on the inside. This one was a really, really pretty piece of river birch. I turned this a long, long time ago, and it sat around unfinished for that very reason, because the opening is so large in it, has a couple of smaller openings on the side, and same scenario. Wasn't in love with the shape of the opening, plus it being so big that you could drop a puppy in there. And so Trent Bosch has done a demo on this vessel in a vessel thing that I watched one time, and so I decided to do that approach on this one, where you turn a piece thin, boil it or steam it to get it warm, and slide it inside, and put a balloon inside and blow the balloon up to push it up and hold it into that opening in place while it dries and cures. This one was a little different than that, in that I chip carved. I didn't want it just smooth, and so I chip carved the outside and did a metal patina finish on it, just to have something that was contrasting with all of this figure, and you have a combination of a really, really shiny and then dull in color with wood tones. So, and by the way, I'm going to take whatever questions you guys have. I'll allow some time at the tape, and we'll tackle those questions at the end. I struggle enough with ADD that if I answer questions midstream here, next thing you know, I'll be telling you about my fishing trip in Canada, and we'll never get through this. Here's one other thing that falls into that category. This was a piece of something. I don't remember what it was. I should, but beautiful piece of wood, really, really highly figured, and highly figured wood works really, really well for trans-tint type dyes. You can sand them smooth, apply black dye to it, let that dry, sand it back down to get rid of most of the black, and then put other colors in, and the black really makes the grain pop. And so you can take a piece of wood that, if it was just finished natural, and you can see a good comparison on the bottom, where there's the natural wood on what it looks like compared to what it looks like stained. And this type of thing just really, really makes makes the grain pop. The other thing that I've done a fair amount of, and any of you that take the AAW magazine have already seen, but I've done, because of the whole fish thing, I've done some vessels that ended up being fish pieces. And there's a better description on the, in the magazine of this whole process and what it was. But go ahead and pull up. This thing started out, okay, we'll start there. These pieces, originally I started out with 2 vertical saltwater pieces. It was the first idea that I had on doing this, and had gone on a snorkeling trip down in the islands, and that kind of inspired the idea of doing a woodworking piece with the saltwater fish. And you can go ahead and scroll through a couple of these, but there's yeah, these are going to be out of order, but just hold on there for a second. That was the first piece, and on that piece I tried to create some openings where between the fish you could look through, and there was a painted background back behind, so it kind of looked like water in between all of the fish. And I did that first one, and then somewhere along the line, I ran into some pictures of a guy by the name of Gordon Pembridge. And if you want to have fun, pull Gordon Pembridge, and he is in New Zealand. He's originally from South Africa, but when I saw the pictures, I felt like a counterfeiter, because he does mainly mammal and bird pieces on the same idea, where he'll have a vessel and really super detailed carving and painting work on the sides. Makes this look like kindergarten work, because he's just an incredible artist. But his thing, he usually did the same shaped vessel and little bitty tiny pierced holes going through. And on his, the colors were a lot of times were oranges or yellows or something that showed through, to where you'd look through the tops of a tree and you'd see a sunset behind it or a sunrise behind it. And he does an incredible job of pulling off that look and effect. And I discovered him after the first piece. I looked at it and I realized it was very close to what he was doing. And so I decided to kind of steer away and keep on the theme, but do some things that were a little different. So I came up with a couple that were, where the vessel was carved, and I wanted to create the look of lily pads coming out the side. So this is the shape that the whole thing had to start out as. And on this piece, there will be a couple of fish coming up on each side, and then there'll be a frog jumping up out of the lily pads. Well, in order to have something up here to carve it out of, for this all to be one piece of wood, I have to have this stem coming up, have to have this coming around the outside to cut all the lily pads out, cut all the openings in the side. And so I did a couple pieces along this line, and did a couple of others that were a little different than that. This being the last piece that I've done. Go ahead and let's scroll through just a couple of those pictures. And that piece was one that similar to this, in that there was a shelf of water coming off of one side. So the fish were coming up on both sides, and I wanted to create the look of when you have a sticking up through the water, and you watch the waves and the way it works, it rolls back around. And if you're a fly fisherman, that's the spot that you want to drop a fly into. and a little backwash, a little back eddy and stuff. And so I wanted to create just a small section of water. And the only way to do that was to make this whole ring around the outside, make this channel coming up, and all of this stuff gets cut away in order to make that sort of thing. Go ahead. Yeah, and there's a back view of it. And again, that is this piece here. On this one, I wanted to do a horizontal display on it. So this started out as a vessel like that, and hollowed, of course, round all the way around. I cut the bottom off of it. I left enough mass at the end that I would have something to carve the minnows and the piece of driftwood out of. So all of this has just been, this was a big hunk of wood that was carved away in order to duplicate that. And then with that, I have to have enough to hold it all together. So there has to be contact points so that the, so that the whole thing will hold together. If you want, you can just put them on that table over there, and because we'll load up the table with stuff. Anyway, I don't know. I've been successful in selling a few of these pieces. I don't know. I have that one that I'll do, and at some point I'll do more. But for right now, that's all that I have planned. Well, these are either out of sycamore or basswood. A couple of them, I had a basswood tree that I cut down on my place, and basswood is a really nice, easy to work wood to carve out of. Sycamore is also this one's sycamore, and it's I was impressed with it. It's a really nice, strong wood. These look fragile, but they're pretty durable, and so. Sycamore is probably going to be my go-to for most of the future projects. Let's go ahead. Yeah, and those pictures show some of the cutaways on how it progressed. Go ahead. On things just gradually, and I had to just kind of go as I'm not an engineer, so I didn't draw it all out other than just some rough drawings on the wood, and then work it out in a way that it was going to all hold together. Okay, that piece, I'll go ahead and work into that. That piece, that is a porcelain coffee cup, and I saw that coffee cup in a magazine, turned out, I guess, and the light kind of went off on it, and I thought that would be pretty cool to turn out of wood. And the obvious problem with it is the cup itself is too close to the base in order to make that work successfully. But I played around with it a little bit and came up with that. And so in order to get to that, all of that, is stuff that was cut away, in order to make the coffee cup. So I know I lived through the 70s. That's all I can say. The process, I looked at that picture for a long time trying to decide, how am I going to approach it? How am I going to do it? And I knew that I would have to be able to support it on both ends. So originally I had a screw chuck on, a chuck on, no, not a screw chuck. I had a faceplate on this side, and this is simply a hollow form. I'm going to drag that thing off yet. So it's a hollow form. This is what it looks like before it's cut away. So, and of course, this is not hollowed yet here, but you have to have a way of eventually gripping it on here. So when you turn around, you can turn the inside as well. So the challenge with it is that in hollowing this, a couple things. One, you have, in fact, while I'm talking here, I'll pass one of these around. The challenge is that you're essentially doing a hollow form with a big lump on the inside of it there. And you're coming through, you can't really see where you're at. So I got the idea to drill some random holes through the side as an indicator of what my wall thickness was going to be. And so I could start hollowing in this side and come around and determine where the bottom of it is going to be. And then you can only hollow so far up in here because at some point your tool is either going to hit the bottom of the cup or this side or the outside wall on whatever kind of tool you have. And so it becomes a real challenge on how far you can get up in there. So at one point when I would get up in as far as I could, I would flip and I'm using a bar that's got a curve about like that on it, John Jordan bar, and I could flip the cutter upside down on it and then turn the lathe in reverse and then come in from this direction. So then you had a natural way of coming all the way up and coming up and getting as much out of this top as you possibly could. And so Anthony came up and turned one of these at the shop and did you ever cut it apart, Chad? No, okay. Okay. But it was a fun project. I'll cut these away before I go to SWAT and go ahead and finish them up. They're going to be slightly different. All three are going to be slightly different shapes, but at some point you just have to determine where the handle is going to be, how wide it's going to be, and then everything else just gets cut out with a saber saw. And then there's obviously some grinding and sanding to do. But when the bottom is completely hollowed and up in here, you've done all that you can do, then you have to be able to grip it here, turn around there, and then hollow this out and hope but you don't have a good way of measuring what your wall thickness is there. So it's a little dicey on trying to get your wall thickness as thin as you can with running blind on it, on where the bottom was and how thick they are. Let's throw a couple more pictures up there and see if yeah, go ahead. That was the first fish carving. Go ahead. And that was the one that if you do pull up the Gordon Pembridge website and you keep that photo in mind, and then you look at his work, you'll see that it made me nervous to try to. I wasn't trying to copy him because at the time I didn't know about him. But then once I saw his work, it was all I could think about was how not to try to copy him. To give you an idea of how random ideas come along, I was in Habitat for Humanity, and I'm going through, and they have a whole big Gaylord box of this stuff. I mean, great big pile of this stuff, 50 cents. And I use ratchet straps for everything. I don't use rope for anything. And I thought for 50 cents, I need to have some rope. So I threw a couple in, and I'm walking around, and I threw one of the light duty ones in too. And so at some point, I had remembered my wife and I were on a trip out west someplace, and we were in a gallery, and somebody had made vessels out of old cowboy ropes, you know, the old worn, used up cowboy ropes. And it was be a vessel form, but they, I don't know if they glued them or epoxied them or whatever, but it was this old worn out cowboy rope that was in the shape of a vessel. And for whatever reason, that popped in my mind after buying this stuff. And so I thought, that would have some possibilities to do something, because the rope being basically a wood product, that I haven't mentioned, I have probably 100, because I'm riddled with ADD, I'm really good about starting stuff and really bad about finishing stuff. So I have tons of things sitting around that have been turned for years and years and years. Some of it is destined for to go in the fireplace and get burned, because it'll never get turned. But I had some pieces like this this was elm, and you can see how much that widened out was, but it's thick enough, it could probably still be twice turned, but the shape isn't, I'm not in love with the shape or anything. And so I looked through a couple of those that I had, and I had a piece kind of sort of like this that I was probably never going to finish again. And so I put it on the lathe, turned it to get it uniform again, turned kind of a groove down near the bottom that was roughly half the thickness of the rope as a starting place, and had it set up on the lathe between centers, and took the rope, and I took and I mixed up some epoxy, and I brushed on some epoxy, and then I have a hand stapler that is not a normal stapler, but one that they used to use for stapling like phone cable, has a little short U-shaped cap on it. And so I used that to anchor it, and I wrapped it around as far as I could until it wanted to start to wander, and I put another staple in it and put a little more epoxy down and just worked my way all the way up, stapling it as I went. And then I kept the staples to where they stuck up way past the rope, and then turned the lathe on, brushed epoxy on the whole thing, let it turn real slow, and the epoxy kicked off in about a half hour or something and quit to where it wasn't running anymore. Let that go ahead and harden up. Came back and a second coat of epoxy with mica powder in it, and to give it a little bit of color, and then started turning it after it's set up and cured. And so I'm basically just trying to knock off half of the thickness of that rope in order to get the look of all the strands and the rope, and then put another coat of epoxy on as needed in order to do it. So anyway, at the very end, I cut the top of it off and glued on another piece of wood on the top, and then finished that out to have a way to make a small opening at the very start, so that you weren't. I mean, the inside of it's wood, obviously, but this is the second one that I've tried. Well, let me back up. After that epoxy set up and cured for an hour or two, I went in with pliers and I pulled all the staples back out. That's good. That's a really good plan, to make sure you get those out before it gets too hard. So I pulled all of the staples back out, and before I put additional epoxy on it. This is the second one that I tried on that, and this is not finished. I'm going to have to sand this down and put another coat of finish on it, as I got in a hurry and got runs in it. But I wanted to try something a little different with it. And I got the bright idea to take some RIT dye and take a whole coil of this, and I tried to dye it black with the idea that maybe I could get a variation of color with the rope, so it wasn't all just the same thing. And so this one, the dark rope, it didn't turn out as dark as what I thought it would, but it still shows up as kind of shadows in there. And I cut specific lengths of ropes where the blonde ones and the dark ones were the same length, so that when I started around and it ended up here, and then I did, the next one was a blonde one and the next one was a black one, I was in hopes that there would be some sort of pattern, start and stop pattern that was kind of random because I really thought it was going to be more distinct than what it was. But same thing, and then I cut the top off, put another piece of wood on to finish out the top. But forgive my runs on this one, but that one's going to need a little bit of extra work to get it finished up. But that was just a happy accident that has kind of an interesting effect, I think, and it has. I think it has some possibilities on things other than hollow forms. I think, you know, a rim of a bowl that has a wider top rim or something like that, or even on the side wall of it. I'm going to try it with, you all know what piwas are, the little bow ties that people use to fix a crack or something, to support a crack on the side of a bowl. I'm going to try some of that with different shapes, just weaving this in as a way of reinforcing, but in a way that is something other than just a bow tie. So anyway, I think there's some fun to be had there, and you know, junk like this can have a new life and be turned and made into something. Because by the time this shape I don't like at all, but by the time it's reshaped round and a different top is brought in, then it makes it possible to make a shape that's at least halfway interesting. Yeah, that one there. Back up one picture there, if you would, Rob. No, oh, okay. Yeah, back up again. Again. Nope, wrong way. Let's see. Well, okay, and okay, there's a few pictures there that kind of show the process on the rope, on how it was applied and gone on. Okay, that piece there, somewhere along the line, I got the idea that it would be interesting to make a suspended vessel, and this one is not finished yet. I'll get it finished up before SWAT and take it down there, but I thought it would be kind of neat to do something like that. And so the picture up there is what it took to, the coffee cup idea is where I got this idea, because it's kind of the same thing. A vessel above, a vessel below. The vessel below is mostly cut away in order to, you know, create a stand for the thing. And so this one I did out of really fresh walnut, kind of intentionally to get two colors out of it, to where you have the lighter color sapwood and you have the darker wood too, and it shows up on the stand as you know, as it goes down too. And so this one was a fairly challenging piece too, from the standpoint that you have to turn and hollow one end, and then that hollowed vessel still has to be strong enough in order to support it, so you can come back and, you know, and hollow the other side. And then the rest of this was cut away. And like that picture right there, I had kind of envisioned that the corkscrew would actually be the stand, that it would just come down and it would corkscrew around, and there would be enough support there to support the thing. There was two things. One, I didn't leave quite enough meat on the bottom of it to do that. And then there was a little fine crack that somewhere along the line, that part of that tail broke off. And so at that point, I was trying to decide what I would do to support it and how it would be supported. And so I turned this other piece of wood and then cut a groove into it and just fooled around with it to where the tail would slide down into the groove, could be epoxied in place. The inside of this has all been textured on the inside. This will all be colored. I'll use multiple colors and sand back and put more color on and sand back and get a different kind of unusual look that's corkscrewing around on the inside. So so anyway, that's my latest one, and I had hoped to have that finished, but I didn't know I was doing this seminar until 2 days ago. 3 days. Go ahead. Got it. I'll do that. I'll do that. Go ahead and go to that next, or those next ones, and then we'll go to the next file, Rob. That number three file. Okay. All right. This last thing, I'll just have Rob scroll through and leave maybe those on for about 5 seconds at a time. And because most of these, people ask where I get ideas and inspiration from. And the thing that is appealing to me on 3D art, flat art, wood art, vessels, whatever, are the contrast between texture and smooth, between colors, between form, and this is all pottery. And so I enjoy looking at what potters do, because they have a much easier time and can do things that we can't do as turners. But a lot of them have a really good understanding of how to create some really interesting things. And so like that piece right there, back up one there, Rob. Yeah, that one right there. It almost looks like it could be wood, wood grain that's been sandblasted or something like that. But anyway, that's where I haven't duplicated or tried to duplicate any of these pieces, but I do enjoy going through and looking at those just to get ideas of things that I can maybe do in some sort of wood turning form. And even if it's not, even if it's not going to be easy to do. Yeah, that piece right there, or those pieces, there's a guy, Herman de Veers or something, does wood turnings. They're very similar to that, where he'll do a shape and do a really heavy texture on it, and then he'll apply a color and apply another color and apply another color, and then he'll come back and sand them, and he's hitting all those highlights, and so you get all this gradient of all these different colors that are, that are coming off of that sanded texture that make it real interesting. But what's that?
Take it off that you can't put it back on, squeeze, that's us.
Yeah.
They can put it back on.
They can, and potters can put it back on before they put their glazes and whatnot on, but after that, they're kind of stuck with it. And their their glazes and things that they do, a lot of that they're flying by the seat of their pants, and they don't exactly know. They're not engineers. They don't know what it's going to look like before it's finished up and done. But they do come up with some really interesting shapes and textures and stuff. That piece right there, that's a wood piece, and there is a guy by the name of Michael Foster. And if you're bored sometime, pull up his website and the guy's a wood turner. He's obviously an engineer. He has done some segmented stuff, but he's obviously got the engineer mindset. But he does some really, really incredible, difficult pieces to turn. That one I keep coming back and staring at, wondering, how they were turned and how he approached it. So I've spent a fair amount of time looking on his site. Again, haven't tried to copy anything that he's done, but it's fun to see work that you can't figure out how it's done. That's another one of his. Okay, so that's it. All right, the only purpose of any of this is just if to maybe think outside of the box. I started doing this kind of stuff when I started getting bored of doing round and brown, and I've seen others in the club. Chris is a perfect example. Over the years, I've seen how he's brought color and texture and different things into things that he's done, and so I started it out of boredom. Anymore, what trips my trigger is just finding something that's difficult to do and trying to do it. So that's the part that makes it fun. For next meeting, turn something that you haven't done before, hopefully that's out of your wheelhouse slightly, hopefully something that challenges you a little bit. Doesn't matter if it's a pen, doesn't matter if it's doing something with the skew and you're going to use the skew instead of opening your paint cans with it. And just anything that you're out of your comfort level for the next challenge. We'll go with that. Any questions? Well, I said I'd give you a chance at the end, but go ahead. The question is what I'm using on color on the fish, or just anything in particular?
I guess that was base.
Yeah, on the fish, those are combination of paintbrushes and airbrushes, both on those. On what's that? Well, on the fish pieces, it's paint. Yeah, it's paint. On the bright blue one, that's dye. That's and those were, I don't remember if I brushed those on or sprayed those on. Those were probably sprayed on, those trans tint dyes on those, but I do use a combination of both. Anything else?
So on the trans tints, you do the black first and then the lighter colors.
Right. Yeah. The thing on the trans tint is I start off with black and I thin it down with alcohol to get it to where it's not too opaque, and spraying it on really works really well for that coat, but you don't have to. You can take a sponge brush or something and put it on, let it soak in, and when you do it, you're going to have an immediate idea that you screwed up, because it's going to look way too dark and you've gone way too far. That one I got really, really dark to start with. I OD'd on it, but you can just sand it back from there, and it'll have a tendency to go down in that figure. And then when you sand back and then you put any other color over the top of it, it just really makes it pop. So on the trans-tint stuff on really highly figured woods it really makes them pop. And they don't have to be colors that bright. You could do black and then stay with more natural tones if you wanted to, but it would still really make that pop.
So do you thin it back quite a bit?
Yeah, I do. I usually thin it. Trans-tint dyes and the other ones, you can thin them with water or alcohol, either one. And generally I use denatured alcohol to thin them because it evaporates quick. But
So a porous wood probably works better than a solid wood like maple or something like that.
what?
Maple would be maybe, wouldn't be porous enough to accept transit.
I haven't done it. I haven't actually tried it on any softwoods. I think harder woods would, hard maple would probably be better than soft maple. Burls, it'll really make those pop, on doing burls. But I've only done a handful of pieces with it, so I'm certainly not any expert on it. But I do like the effect that you can get on it.
Greg teaches that with fiddleback type of maple.
Oh yeah, on fiddleback it would really make it pop on that. Yeah. Anything else? All right, guys.
I can almost hear your brains starting to burn with ideas and things that this will inspire. So thank you, Don. Thank you for taking the time to show us how you get from point A to point B on some of these, because when we look at them, that's usually our biggest question. How did he do that? So thank you. We are going to take a little refreshment break here. And while we're doing that, Mike, I hope, is going to run around with a dollar sweepstakes bucket and take a look at the 4 or 5 different prizes. I did put some bottle stoppers out there and with some cedar pieces, I think, that somebody had. Nice t-shirt, but I will tell you it's a small, so I don't want you to get it home and think, wow, I really got taken. And then there's a candle snuffer kit that's got the brass end of a candle snuffer, so it'd just be turning the handle to that. So take a look at those items, and if you have a desire, put $1 or $2 in the dollar sweepstakes bucket. But for right now, let's take a little break and have a refreshment. So Don's got some nice sycamore blanks over there, $25 a piece, and it'll go towards the club. And I forgot totally. I told Sue to give me this as a reminder, but Sue has created some emergency contact stickers. The intent is that you would put these on the back of your membership badge, just so that if we found you on the floor in the shop or something, we'd be able to have a number to call. All right.